I can't really imagine somebody saying, I don't want a complete physique. I only want to look like Johnny Bravo. I don't think I know anyone that will outright say that, like everyone wants a complete physique from what I know.
Yeah. What's good, fam? Welcome to Financial Fitness. I'm Sam Razban-Nia, the fitness accountant and owner of Raz Tax and Advisory. I help business owners and entrepreneurs with all their tax and accounting needs. Today, our guest is Franky Yan. He is pharmacist, IFBB Pro, and fitness coach. Welcome to the pod, Franky.
Hi, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Of course, we're really happy to have you here. What can you not do? You have I think being a pharmacist with the field that you're in not only gives credibility, but I've had a lot of people ask me for this pod. I want to know this, and this. Please have Franky talk about it. So. Let's start with getting to know who Franky Yan is, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, Franky Yan. I have my bachelor's in biochemistry, as well as my doctorate in pharmacy. I work full-time as a pharmacist in pediatrics, and I happen to also be an online coach, which is basically another full-time job for me. And I'm also a professional bodybuilder, IFBB Pro, and I compete in the men's physique division. So that's what really takes up my time and my passion.
Okay. As far as, going a little further back, like, are you from LA? What's your background like? How did you even get into this industry?
Yeah, I was born and raised here in Southern California, LA. I grew up actually in Arcadia, so kind of by the Pasadena area. I started, when I was younger, I played sports, played things like basketball, volleyball, swim. And so I always had an active childhood and upbringing, and after high school my basketball dreams were over. Basketball was my original passion. And when I realized I wasn't gonna be 6'6" and be able to dunk a basketball, I was like, all right, what am I gonna do? And of course, my parents instilled in me the importance of higher education, and then from there I also wanted to still channel my inner competitiveness, and that's when I kind of found the gym and eventually bodybuilding. I got into the gym kind of just for fun. I used to be a scrawny little kid, 140 pounds, and
so hard to believe.
and like now 50 pounds later, but I actually did not initially want to compete, but I saw my other friends in the gym start competing and they were doing well. And then it was kind of like one thing led to the next. I was like, oh, I'll try it once. And then I did really well, and the rest was kind of history. I kept going with it, and then it's provided me a lot of opportunity in terms of, on social media, sponsorships, photo shoots, just meeting people in the industry. And I kind of just kept going with it. And, right place, right timing, right people that I met at the right time.
Awesome. Did you ever have a powerlifting phase?
No, I never officially did any powerlifting meet or anything like that. But I would say, in terms of like structuring my workout programs, I did at one point do powerlifting lifts. But no, I didn't go as far as doing any competitions, but I did do like the bench press, the squatting, and the deadlift. And believe it or not, I'm actually not that strong, so I knew I couldn't really do powerlifting or pursue it. There's guys that are like half my weight that can lift twice as much as me, and it's just it was in my repertoire, I guess.
And that's actually something interesting. There are some bodybuilders who don't have as much strength as they show. Obviously a lot of it is looks, but when you're training, how did you get into that mind muscle connection? Like, how can you that's something very difficult for like an average lifter like myself to really think about which muscle you're targeting, and symmetry there. So, what have your coaches taught you? What have you learned about, mind muscle connection and getting that right? What is?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because when I first started working out, I would go through the motions and did my best to try to understand what I'm doing. And even till today, I'm still learning. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is how my lower lats feel when I change my arm path or my body angling so that my arm is closer to my torso versus farther away from my torso, versus I'm hunched over with a little bit of spinal flexion versus no spinal flexion. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know this is how it's supposed to feel. So I think a lot of it is trial and error. Some of it's definitely obviously understanding your body and anatomy and how it works, and just also understanding that like not one size fits all. You know, you'll see educational content on social media, but until you apply it to yourself, it may or may not work. And it's also about just being open-minded to making those adjustments. And then, you know, I think it's like real life application. And I think that's where I learned the mind muscle connection. Like, oh my gosh, when I adjust this, I feel it here. But when I don't do this, I feel less engagement. So a lot of it is like feeling.
Hard to teach it. It's really hard to teach
you gotta
it.
feel the feeling.
Got it. Okay. So regarding your work as a pharmacist, I didn't know it was in the pediatric realm. So are you at a hospital, or are you, you know, at a doctor's office? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I work in a hospital, level 1 trauma centers. So the busiest of the busiest, the sickest of the sickest, inpatient. So my schedule kind of has me a little bit everywhere. I staff a little bit everywhere, which I like. It keeps things exciting. You know, sometimes I'm helping out in the ICU. Sometimes I'm in labor and delivery. Sometimes I'm with the little fellas, the neonates, you know, the babies that are just born. And then sometimes I'm just in the main pharmacy dispensing meds. And so it keeps things very exciting. You know, with the pharmacy, I told myself when I got into pharmacy school, I absolutely knew I hated retail. Being robotic at a Rite Aid or CVS, I told myself I'm going to do everything I can to meet the right people, to intern at the right place, to work at the right place for free, so that I can ensure myself to be in a place where I'm going to be challenged and happy. Because I think at the end of the day, you know, pharmacy is my passion, but I also wanted to be a part of pharmacy where I'm using my education and not just, you know, standing for 8 hours, here's your meds, you know, consulting at, no offense, at like a CVS or something like that. Yeah, maybe I'll do that when I retire, you know, but right now I want something that's a little more exciting.
Yeah, that's not easy. 8 to 10 hours behind the pharmacy counter there, and just so you work with like NICU, is it called, as well? NICU, so oh wow, the little ones.
Yeah.
How come that, and I guess not another field? What made you go toward the little ones? Because that's difficult.
Mm-hmm. It was a little bit of right place, right timing. You know, when I did find my first internship while I was in pharmacy school, I happened to be in pediatrics, and I really enjoyed it. And I think part of the enjoyment of that process was I had great coworkers, great admin that supported me. And so when I graduated, I kind of just stayed there, and right place, right timing again. And, you know, they had a spot open and they hired me, and I've only been happy there. So I think, you know, yeah, it's all about right place, right timing, and it was the right fit at the right time. And I'm still very happy there. So
you're still basically working toward your Olympia qualifier right now, right? Are you going to do that show this year, or? Yeah,
I actually am 3 and 4 weeks away from my next competition.
Oh,
so I'm like,
is that your first Olympia qualifier, or you've done it before?
So I've been trying to qualify for Olympia since for a couple of years now. So the main thing is you have to do a pro show, and you have to win first at any pro show. Every year they kind of change the rules. In the past, they would have a point system where, like, if you don't necessarily win first, but if you rack up enough points by winning second, third, fourth, or fifth, and maybe you were top 2 in points, then you would get invited. You would get that last wild card spot for the Olympia. But now this year, the last 2 years, they changed it where you would only get invited to Olympia if you win any pro show, which is really hard in itself, you know?
They're making it much more. Okay.
They're trying to make it less dilute, I guess.
I think from what I was reading back in the day, maybe not even back in the day, like 5-6 years ago, there was like 50 pros or something.
Yeah, like 50 or 60.
And going through all that on the Olympia stage was not fun for the audience either, or the judges, right?
Yeah.
As a pharmacist, as a men's physique pro, and as a fitness coach, you know, tell the viewers, how can you possibly balance all of that? You know, the one being the 9 to 5, taking so much out of you, but still showing up for both yourself and wanting to get to that Olympia qualifier again, and also assisting clients, you know, whether it be a lifestyle or a prep client. So, you know, how do you do that?
Well, that's a deep question, multiple layers to it. I think first and foremost, I think I'm passionate about everything that I invest my time into. And so that alone makes everything very easy. And then the second most important thing, or actually tied for first, is actually having a supportive partner. So my wife, Ashley, is very supportive. I can't even begin to imagine doing what I do without her support, her undivided, unconditional support. And I know people who have partners that aren't as supportive, and I can see how it tears apart their marriage or the relationship. So I chose the best partner possible, I think, and it makes my life easier when we are on the same page and that we are in agreement in terms of where I invest my time and how I invest my effort financially and so forth. But in terms of balancing everything, I think, I'm going to use that big word, time management, right? So I have my 9 to 5, and then I still have, a team of clients that I coach. I have, I'm very schedule oriented. I used to not be, but in order to stay on track, I had to be schedule oriented. So every morning, maybe I wake up an extra hour or two, work on some client check-ins, go to my 9 to 5. I even have to work sometimes during my lunch break so that I can answer some client questions because I personally don't like to go longer than a couple hours or whatever it may be without answering certain people's questions, because after all, they're paying for my service. But I also tell them, hey, I do have a 9 to 5. So if I'm not answering, it's not that I'm ignoring you. It's just maybe I'm busy working. And then, when I get off my 9 to 5, that's when I also put in another couple hours of like checking in on clients and whatnot. But I do have a system, so it makes things a lot more efficient. Nothing like a cookie cutter or anything, but like I have a system in terms of like, hey, I want you to check in during these times. If you don't check in during these times and you hold your check-ins until 10 o'clock, I'm not going to be answering you at 10 o'clock, you know.
So communication is key.
Communication is key.
Does everybody, whether they're lifestyle or prep, check in on this at the same time in order for you to, just consolidate all that and make it easier for yourself? Like, is that the best way to balance it, or do you split it up somehow?
I try to split it up. Right now, I kind of let everybody check in on their own time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I try to tell them to check in before their cheat meal or whatever it is so that I can accurately assess their progress.
Once a week?
Once a week, yeah.
Okay.
At least for a lot of my lifestyle people, like I'm not going to put them on a bodybuilding diet where you can't have a cheat meal at all. But in order for me to assess your progress accurately, I want you to check in before your cheat meal. And a lot of people have their cheat meals Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I do know mentally, okay, most of my work is going to be during the weekend mornings when these clients check in. Some people have their cheat meal on a Wednesday, so I do get check-ins Monday through Thursday sometimes, but a lot of my check-ins are Friday through Sunday. So it kind of, it's a backloaded workflow, I guess.
I mean, obviously each client is different. Like you said, you're not going to have a cookie cutter approach. The lifestyle clients that you have, the off-plan meals that you give them, do they only get one a week, or it actually depends on the person and their discipline? What is your view of that?
Yeah. With a lot of my lifestyle athletes, they automatically get one cheat meal a week. There are some people who get 2, maybe even 3, like the hard gainers, but they would have had to work up to that point first. But it's kind of like along the lines of like, because I'm a bodybuilder myself and because I don't compete year round, I'm going to be having cheat meals when I'm not competing once or twice a year, maybe more sometimes. So it wouldn't make sense to tell my lifestyle clients, hey, you can't have this cheat meal. Like, it's, for me, I center my coaching around sustainability and what's realistic to their schedule and their lifestyle as well. So those are things I assess and factor in as I design their client specific programs. And there's no way, it doesn't make sense for me to tell them to skip a cheat meal when I'm going to have a cheat meal myself. We got to keep it realistic. And actually, even in my meal plans, I assign them, hey, every day of the week, you can get a snack of your choice. You can use it for something clean, or you can use it for something for your cravings or enjoyment. If you want an ice cream bar at the end of the night or even a cookie, go for it. And then at the end of every week, everybody gets a cheat meal no matter what. Even if you didn't get the progress you want, I want you to have it. I don't want you to deprive yourself, because one thing I learned is it's kind of like I refer to a rubber band. If you keep depriving yourself, you're yanking on that rubber band, right? Even if you don't feel like having a cheat meal, I want you to go get in and out, Sam.
Right.
Go have something good, because if you keep depriving yourself, that craving is eventually going to snap and hit you back in the face. And unfortunately,
just happened last night.
And the last thing I want is people to develop, an eating disorder, or like they end up binge eating and they're like, oh crap, so I've done it long enough where like everyone gets a cheat meal regardless of if you had a good or bad week, and then we can assess what can we do to improve from here.
So I'm assuming, cuts is when, he preps you, 0 cheat
Oh
meals.
yeah, yeah. For me, 0 cheat meals. We've just learned that I don't do well with cheat meals during prep, and
Not even one. How many are you on a 16-week prep usually? Is it shorter, longer?
yeah. Each competition is a little bit different. It kind of depends if I kept it clean during the off season or if I got a little bit sloppy in bodybuilding terms, if I got sloppy. And that'll really dictate if I need 12 weeks, 16 weeks, sometimes even 20 weeks if I need a little more time to improve my overall body composition. So right now I'm about 12 to 14 weeks of my current cut/prep for my next bodybuilding show.
Wow. Do you know, or where are you going to be having it? Where is it going to be? Do you want to tell people, or is that
Yeah,
under
yeah.
wraps?
I'm gonna reveal it very soon anyway.
Okay.
But I'm doing one in 3 weeks and 4 weeks. So the 3 weeks is Legion Sports Festival in Reno, Nevada.
Okay.
I've done that one back in I think 2022, and I really like the production of that. And then the one 4 weeks is that one's in Colorado. So I like to try to stay in the West Coast and not have to travel too far East Coast. Just a little bit easier and cheaper financially as well.
It's a very expensive sport.
Oh yeah,
A
yeah,
very expensive
definitely.
sport. It's interesting that you say stay on the West Coast. I hear a lot of things, and this is where the politics of it comes in that I always hear about, right? I'm going to go to the East Coast. It might be a little more favorable for me there. It's almost like you're shopping for a better deal, right? So that's, I guess it depends on the athlete, right? But have all the shows that you've done in your career basically been on the West Coast, or you've also traveled pretty far to make that dream happen for yourself? What has it been like for you?
Yeah, I would say predominantly a majority of the pro competition I've done have been on the West Coast, just because it's easier for traveling and less stress on the body, which, because flying can cause some water retention because of the altitude, and some people don't handle it well. Thankfully, I do handle it well. I did compete in a few East Coast shows before. We went last year actually. I think it was my first time going East Coast just to try something different. I went to Florida, which was
Nice.
amazing. I mean, it's humid, but I turned that into a little mini vacation with my wife afterwards. We went to Magic Kingdom, Disney World, Epcot afterwards. So it
Nice.
was justified. It was justified. But yeah, it's different. Different panel of judges, different look. They say different preference. It is a subjective sport, and they have standards. But sometimes, the judging panel can deviate from some of that standard. Sometimes, I will say I didn't do well on the East Coast. All the shows that I did do well or was close to winning were all on the West Coast. So I'll probably stick to West Coast.
It's interesting that you say and this is something, there's different standards, or I guess there's different looks, whether it's East Coast or West Coast. That's so interesting to me, because even though it is subjective, I guess there is technically a little objectivity in there from coast to coast. So very interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing is even having to think about your flights going there, and like you said, the water retention. So you're basically literally nitpicking everything that can happen to your body, especially if you're 2 days out, right? You're flying basically 2 days out. So I don't even know where to begin with that
Yeah.
as a normie. Yeah.
It's yeah, like I mean, even thinking about it right now, like thinking back to how I flew to Florida, I think we actually got there 3 days before, which is usually I go for 2, but 3 just because we wanted to account for any altitude or water retention I had, and just to get there a day or two earlier to walk it off, or maybe I do need to do extra cardio. But just like, yeah, it could be stressful traveling far because I have to meal prep, and I think at that time I was eating tilapia, and tilapia can stink. And getting that through the airport can be a little bit tricky, especially if you have a long flight to Florida. And so that was one of the things that we were stressing about. I was like, okay, we're gonna put this on ice, but hopefully it doesn't spoil during the flight, because if I land and all that food spoils, or maybe TSA had me get rid of it, then I can imagine, oh gosh, that'd be like a avalanche of a stress ball immediately landing, getting a rental, finding a market, finding cooking apparatuses. Because I think at that time we were at a hotel. I didn't get an Airbnb, so I was like, okay, I got to make sure I'm like extra prepared. We have all the food extra in ounces and containers, and just little things you got to think about, like where can mistakes happen that can cause me to stress, which can ruin my physique, even if I'm 1 to 2 days out. So I think another reason why stay in the West Coast, less stress, less chance for just bad things to happen.
And so when you think about these guys that are traveling internationally, I'm thinking, wow, they're taking all that food with them. Like how that's so much planning and preparation. But I guess that's why it's their true passion. You know, that's
Yeah.
what I couldn't even imagine doing that.
Yeah.
Having a private chef maybe is the answer.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Oh, wow. So being a pro athlete, you know, one thing that I've seen you talk about recently on your social media page, on your IG, is the idea of delayed gratification. You know, what are your thoughts about that? You know, tell us more.
Yeah, I think in the sport of bodybuilding, or even just trying to get jacked in the gym, I think it's probably the one biggest thing that it's taught me is delayed gratification, right? It's not going to be overnight results. I think I'm like 13 or 14 years into lifting. And, you know, in a realistic standpoint, if you can gain 3 to 5 pounds of muscle, lean muscle tissue every year, that's already a lot. And so, you know, we live in this day and age on social media where it's short attention span, 2-second attention span, and instant gratification. But with getting jacked or even bodybuilding, it's a long process. You got to marinate it just like that carne asada, and you're not going to see the immediate results overnight. You may not even see it 3 months down the road.
Is that how you got those calves?
Shout out to my dad.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a lot of work, and you don't see the things immediately, and it can be very discouraging for a lot of people. And that's how, you know, unfortunately, some people fall off along their fitness journey. But, you know, fortunately, I was that 140-pound kid who wanted to be jacked one day, and I just kept going at it. And along the way, I found passion for lifting and working out. And it also became therapeutic for me, you know, for mental health and just everything, you know, feeling better about myself, self-esteem, confidence. And so I stuck with it. And through this journey, I've learned, okay, like when I follow through with the commitment for as long as I've had, you then actually start seeing the results, you know, and so it's been a very rewarding process, a very long process. And now it's just part of my daily routine. I can't imagine myself like not working out even when I'm 50 or 60, you know, like I'm still going to go 3 to 4 times a week probably, you know, and
It's your life. It's your lifestyle.
Yeah.
So from that 140-pound kid, you know, what are you weighing in at right now these days?
Right now I'm about 185 or so. So sometimes I fluctuate anywhere from 170 to up to even 200, depending if I'm like really trying to bulk. But if I'm really trying to cut down for competition, I've gotten to as low as like 169, 174.
Oh, wow.
Right now 185. So I still got a little bit ways to go. Yeah.
Okay. BioLane, you know BioLane, right?
Yes.
So he also discusses what works is not sexy, right? So the mundane, the doing those daily repeated tasks to get to that goal, right? Something that I just talked about on my last pod is the fact that you know it's a long game and you keep going, right? You can't build that muscle maturity just in one show. You know, there are some individuals who become nationally qualified or pro their first or second show, but I think the humbling moment probably gets to that Olympia qualifier, right? What kind of advice do you have to the young generation to help them understand that this is a long game, is what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, that's a tough one because, you know, the younger generation's exposed to the whole instant gratification thing. But I guess my biggest advice is, you know, anything worth having in life will take time. You know, whether it's being jacked or getting a college degree or, you know, hitting a certain point in your career, it's going to take time, effort, investment, and, you know, follow through with your commitments. That's something very important that my parents instilled in me. Like, if you're going to commit to something, don't do it half-heartedly. Make sure you're going in all the way. And I think that's very important to instill in the younger generation because we are so constantly worried about instant gratification, instant results. I want to be an influencer by the time I'm 18, you know? Yeah. It's going to be a process. Yeah.
So I noticed that a lot of your content on IG, it's definitely educational, but you have a lot of motivational um, subjects in there too. What kinds of, are you doing all your content yourself? Do you have individuals who help you with that? Where do you get ideas for that? How did you build that brand that you have today?
A lot of it's just myself and my wife. She's behind the
Shout out to wifey again.
she's
Yeah.
behind the camera almost basically all the time.
Oh, wow.
And when she's not with me, I just have my own tripod, and the ideas kind of come from everywhere. Like if I'm driving or commuting to work and I'm like, oh wait, this would be like a good educational topic, then I put it into my notes on my phone. Or maybe I get inspired by another influencer. And then sometimes if I'm like stuck with what kind of educational content I post, I think about, okay, I kind of wear a different hat. I'm like, okay, if I'm consuming Franky's content, what do I want to see, And I kind of take that seat. But yeah, everything, I don't have a team. Everything's just by myself or by my wife. And occasionally when I do nicer videos, I coach some clients who do videography and photography for a living. And so sometimes they offer their services to me for free or even at a discounted rate, or maybe they want to collab because they want to dip into the more fitness filming stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, let's do it. Like, we both can only gain from this opportunity.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, that's what's happening so far. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
For self-employed private trainers or online coaches, they don't teach in school finances in general, how to budget, how to even do your own taxes, how to save money, how to write off certain things, And so I think that's something I'm very curious about. If you have any tips, and that I think that, a lot of people in the same shoes as mine are very curious about, because I think at the end of the day, people want to make as much money as possible, but also save as much money as possible as well. And that's something that, the educational system hasn't set up for people like us.
That's a really great question. I do wish that everybody had to take at least one tax class in their life, just as a matter of personal finance, and because that's the real world, we have to know these kinds of things. The setting aside paying taxes, I think the goal of an entrepreneur should be, it's twofold: to be the best at your own profession and to make as much money as you can. And I'm not saying that as a matter of greed. I'm saying that as a matter of you setting yourself up for success in the future, and not having to work as much, because the point of money is freedom, not greed. So if you are able to plan well, and that's the tools of tax and planning and things like that, utilize these things in a general sense, then you can be set up for the rest of your life, right? When it comes to tax law broadly, the code is not built for employees. It's built for entrepreneurs. And that's because lawmakers wanted us to have entrepreneurs to create things in society, right? Not technically be workers for somebody else. That's where innovation comes into play. So the tax code is all about incentivizing. It's 99% of what they're trying to accomplish. Doesn't always come out that way. But again, humans are trying to control how other human investments work, right? So the entrepreneurship aspect of tax code allows you to have those write-offs. That's when you can start bringing that in. When you're an employee, you don't have the benefits of writing anything off. You just have your W-2, right? So as an online coach, you're an online coach, do you also do any in-person training or no? I'm
Not
just
anymore.
curious. Yeah.
I did a couple years ago for a few years, and then now I'm just fully online.
I mean, the online thing is absolutely blowing up. I do have clients that have a mix of both, right? Because some people still like to have that human element, right? For you, it's different. You have your pharmacist job. You see people every day. But imagine like being solely online. It can get a little mentally difficult, at least if it were me, right? But when you start building some kind of clientele base as a side gig, that's when the sole proprietor realm comes in. You're now, in the eyes of tax law, your own business. So the biggest thing that I like to tell clients is now you have to realize you're responsible for paying all of your own taxes. Okay? So if you make a substantial amount of money from your coaching and the W-2 job doesn't withhold enough taxes, which is usually the case, you are now responsible for paying those taxes for your coaching business, right? And that's where the planning during the year comes. You're required to pay estimates quarterly, right? So just as your employer withholds from you every 2 weeks, the law is, as you're generating that income, you must pay the government taxes as you're generating it. So the difficult thing for my new entrepreneur clients is learning that in April, when a tax return comes, their return should actually reflect zero due and almost zero in refund, because the whole point of having the plan during the year is you've already paid it all in. You've properly planned and you've generated the proper or utilized the proper strategies in order to get to that point, right? So the other side of that is if you are paying all of your taxes in April of the year after, you're subject to penalties and interest. So the tax return, a lot of people don't realize until they come to me. Maybe they were going to, maybe a do-it-yourself kind of shop or someone that didn't really show them the way. I noticed on their penalties and interest line the substantial amounts that they were paying that they didn't even know they were paying as a business owner. So that's a biggie.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting because I see some of the content I see online. You see those influencers, even fitness influencers, talking about financial freedom, and they boast about how they write off everything and et cetera, et cetera. So that just kind of gets my mind wondering, like, how much of this is true or accurate, or is it just
clickbait?
And then, people throwing around like, oh, how important is it to get an LLC, et cetera. So yeah, those are just the questions surrounding this entire topic itself.
So again, as an employee, you don't have the ability to write anything off. That comes into play for your coaching business because now you're your own business. What TikTok shows and IG shows is very dangerous, and it's the same thing for you in your industry, right? Having people taking these stacks, this kind of gear, this cycle, right? Like they have no idea what's right for them, and just because one person is doing it doesn't mean it's actually correct, right? So the general idea of business write-offs is the two words the code uses is ordinary and necessary. So it has to, I actually like to add in a third one, and that third one is not overly expensive or something that is within reasonable, right? So ordinary, necessary, and reasonable. So the big one is, I think you mentioned earlier, the car, right? So if you're an online coach, all your clients are online, you have a home office, are you actually driving anywhere for that business, right? So can you use a car in the first place is your question. Is it ordinarily done in that business? The answer is no. If you have in-person clients, that's a separate story, right? So some like to be aggressive. I give them the tools in order to know what's right from wrong. And at the end of the day, we have that discussion. But, in that case, it doesn't make sense. As far as retirement, that's something that the code really wants to incentivize as a business owner. So having what's called an SEP IRA, a SEP IRA, or a traditional IRA, if you are investing in something, you're not only bringing your income down, your taxable income down, but you're saving for your future. So I'm actually pretty shocked to see the number of individuals that don't have a retirement plan in place. Let alone the fact that the IRS is giving you that benefit. But as a matter of logic, being good for your future, it's going to help you in more ways than one, right? So I urge you to at least have some kind of IRA. For you probably have a 401k, I'm assuming. So do your best if you have cash, if you have the cash flow and you don't need it for your personal expenses, to invest the max that you can every 2 weeks on your paycheck, right? So the second part of that is the health insurance. So the health insurance, similar to retirement, the IRS is giving self-employed individuals that extra benefit of writing off their entire cost of health insurance. So, these two things are the basics of being a sole proprietor, but it's pretty shocking to see how many don't take advantage of these rules. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was very good. Thanks for sharing that information.
We can go into the LLC thing too that you talked about, right?
Yeah.
So an LLC is not an automatic tax saving vehicle entity. When you are a one-man operation like you are right now, you're the sole owner. Creating an LLC will give you zero tax benefits. It only gives you legal liability protection as far as the law is concerned. It doesn't give you any kinds of extra deductions or things like that. So I have seen a lot of TikTok say immediately go and create an LLC because now you're an official business and it's going to do something for you. It's unfortunately not true. The time that it'll come in handy is if you have a very risky business and you want to separate your personal assets from your business, right? So that way, if someone sues you, they don't have that. They don't have the option to go after you, unless it's fraud. Then they could go after the LLC and personally, however they choose. So that's the LLC for you.
That's good. That's good information. Yeah.
And especially because we're in California, Franky, the LLC actually has more costs related to it than other states. So not only are you not getting tax advantages on a federal or California level, you're even paying more as a single member owner because you have to pay California every year just to operate that. And it's a minimum of $800. So these are things that I see often, and I would like clients to reach some sort of minimum threshold of, maybe 50,000 net profit to start to see does creating an LLC now start making sense, right? Are you actually doing something that is operable and is going to be occurring for the near future, right? If it's just a quick side hobby, you can have that sole proprietor form on your taxes and you call it a day and you take everything there. But creating an entity comes with a lot of obligations, so we don't want clients to miss those things. What I didn't like that Arnold said a few months ago, and I think you heard, you see, he knows, and Okay, so let's talk about it.
Yeah.
You want to talk about it?
Yeah.
Let's show him who's boss. Look at those calves. Can he say he has those calves? Arnold hasn't.
Let me flex them real quick.
Yeah, exactly. So Franky, here's an interesting topic for you.
Yeah.
A few months ago, we had Arnold come on and say that he doesn't understand the men's physique division. as a category, as a class. He's saying, you know, you're hiding half of your body. Does that even count as bodybuilding? What do you say to that? You know, that's a little unfortunate, which is interesting because the Arnold Classic has all the divisions in it. So if he doesn't believe in it, then I'm curious to know why it's there. So it's kind of like, you know, what do you say to that?
You know, when I saw that video and I saw what he said about the men's physique division and kind of just poking fun of it, it was very unfortunate. I kind of lost a lot of respect for Arnold. Especially, you know, he should know. I mean, he's a businessman. Men's physique division, regardless of what show, along with the bikini division for females, bring a lot of money and revenue for the sport of bodybuilding. And so, just from like a money standpoint, it's like you're gonna attack an entire two divisions or men's physique division,
Right?
that probably pay for the paycheck for classic physique or bodybuilding.
Exactly.
You know, it's unfortunate. I think it's very discouraging, I'm not gonna lie, and it definitely drew a lot of negative emotions from me as well. And you know, because people make fun of the men's physique division for not training legs, but which is false. I mean, there are some individuals who don't train legs or maybe don't train it as hard, and those few individuals happen to be hyper focused on. But I would say, generally speaking, everyone trains legs. I train it just as hard as I train shoulders, you know, and at the end of the day, bodybuilding or not, you know, I'm aiming for a complete physique. And just like a lot of other people, like, I can't really imagine somebody saying, I don't want a complete physique. I only want to look like Johnny Bravo. I don't think I know anyone that will outright say that, you know, like everyone wants a complete physique from what I know. And so, I mean, it's just, it's very unfortunate that Arnold said that. I think, it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
Yeah, I think it hurt. What was Ali Bilal? It hurt him the most. I mean, he was pretty vocal about his reaction on IG. And then there's that other side, you know, playing devil's advocate, saying, Ali and the men's physique guys, you know what you're getting yourself into, because he also had an argument, Ali, of saying they don't make as much money as open or classic or the other divisions. And then, you know, the other side is saying, you know what you're getting yourself into. So if you want more money, you have the option as an athlete to go to classic or go to open, right? So there's that side when it comes to money, right? But I think, in my opinion, it is extremely difficult to do any category, just being in the sport. So it was hard for me to hear that, especially when he even has that division in his own organization, right? So unfortunate, but I'm sure you've bounced back from that. And now he's on his way to Olympia again.
Day the following day. Inspired by Arnold. Appreciate you, Arnold.
Yeah, that was a little bit rough. So he basically just like shit on one of the
I think he even said like, oh, like, you know, you're wearing board shorts, you might as well come in pajama pants and show up on stage, which is just like, come on, Arnold, like,
I don't get it.
I don't know if it's just him aging and talking like a grandpa, but
I hope that's the case.
I mean, it was just unnecessary. And
I mean, we can technically make fun of him.
I mean, because it's fair game.
Look at Derek Lunsford, right? Does the open class now, aren't they showing up? They're way better technically than what Arnold's time was in that sense, right? They're 10 times bigger. They're much more massive. So it's, again, all of it is just, it's not logical. Everybody's got an opinion. At the end of the day, let's just respect each category and see what they've brought to the stage, right? Exactly. So
I think, I mean, there's a purpose behind having different divisions, right? Not everyone wants to be a heavyweight 212 bodybuilder. Not everyone wants to be classic physique. And, you know, men's physique is a very entry-level division, very achievable physique for a lot of amateurs, and even potentially becoming a pro. Same for bikini, very achievable physique, versus if you do wellness or even women's bodybuilding, those are not as achievable or realistic physiques that average people can attain. And so, you know, there's a purpose behind every division. And, you know, and with every division you jump into, like going from men's physique to classic, you're going to need much more mass, much more of this. And if you go to heavyweight bodybuilding, you're talking about, like, if I were to go into heavyweight bodybuilding, I don't even know if I could do that. I don't even know if my joints can handle all that. I'd have to put on an extra, I don't know, 50 pounds, which I can't even fathom.
I know. Is
So
the
yeah,
human body really like built to be that big? Sometimes I get scared that
yeah.
they're gonna blow up on stage.
They look so bubbly and they're like mass monsters,
Yeah,
and not everyone wants to look like that.
exactly.
So I think Arnold, as a businessman, should understand. Okay, men's physique is a little more of the beach body look. It has evolved over the years, going from a beach body look to more like a buff beach body look.
Exactly.
And and that's why they incorporated the whole weight cap for the pros, not in the amateurs yet, but for the pros, it's like, okay, you guys are getting a little too big. Each height has a weight cap, which I think is good. Yeah, it prevents people from taking advantage of just focusing on size and aiming for more symmetry. And yeah,
I personally do like the weight caps too, only because I don't want the classic guys looking like open. I don't want the men's physique now going into the classic realm. Like, that's why they have those categories, right? I always say, my favorite's Matt Grego. He is becoming too big now, in my opinion, for classic. He's teetering on the open side. So I think that's kind of what happens when you get to the pro level. You kind of want more and more and more, and it kind of gets to your head. But props to them. That's what they want to do. They go for it. But yeah, at some point you have to have clear distinctions, because then what makes one different from the other, right? So okay.
I would say, like, if in men's physique, if they were to have us standardized shorter shorts, I'd be okay with that. Maybe not as short as the classic physique trunks,
Yeah.
but if we did, like, halfway up the thigh, I'd be totally 100% okay with that. I think it would make it more fun to showcase more of the legs. I mean, in the last few years, we went from baggy shorts below the knee, like in middle school, to, shorts above the knee, showcase a little bit more quads, and
Yeah.
especially have good, decently sized quads. It kind of makes your taper and your overall physique look better. You have the X-figure look when you have, big quads, tiny waist, broad shoulders, broad back,
Yeah.
And so I would be open to doing that. I think more and more people are actually wearing shorter board shorts.
Yeah.
And if you do have decent sized legs, that only makes your physique look that much more complete. So,
And was that a ruling or a rule change from IFBB and the pro divisions about the height, or I should say the length of the shorts going up? That was mandated at like a couple years back, right?
I forget the exact wording that they use on their website, but yeah, there's like they say it just can't go past a certain point. Like, they don't want like short shorts on stage.
Okay.
But I know there is something in the wording on their site where it's like, this is the shortest it can be.
And we see that it's evolving every year, right? And that's the cool part about it too. They see what is happening to the physiques in general in each division, and how can we now cater to that newer look, which is what they're doing, something that is more pleasing to the eye, and also just in general to science, as far as gear use, right? Like, we have become a light years ahead of what they knew in Arnold's time, right? And you train as hard as you can, and then they also have, the fact that we know more about gear, we can use it more safely, and I think that's also been a factor in how they change the divisions and things like that. That's my view, at least, as an outsider. So I want to talk about Pittsburgh Pro that just happened yesterday. So we're lucky we had we are having our convo today. What did you think of the results, and who are some of your favorite athletes?
I thought it was a very entertaining show, and I think it was definitely great for the sport to have a lot of big names compete yesterday, not just in men's physique division, but all the divisions. And Aaron, he's also coached by the same coach as myself, Ariel, and I mean, he looked phenomenal. And so I think and Brandon Hendrickson coming back after taking a whole year off, it just made that show very exciting. I know Ali was supposed to do it and he pulled out last minute, but just leading up to it, it made the sport very, very exciting. And even I was tuning in following, you know, a lot of the top guys competing in that show, and so it's a very exciting time. I agree with the results as well. Obviously, you know, I only see what's on social media. Being there in person is a little bit different. You know, like I know there's always going to be online judges, online commentators saying, "Oh, how did this person win?" or "How did this person lose?" Like, but you know, it's you know, everyone's going to look different in person versus social media. How the light reflects off their body, a black background versus a distracting background. There's a lot of things that you don't get to see if you're seeing it just online. But overall, very positive, very exciting. I think great for the sport.
I also think Brandon came in quite shredded, honestly.
I liked his physique.
Yeah. I was surprised that he was third too. But again, it's so difficult to rank when they're that dialed in.
Yeah.
It's so difficult when everybody brings their A game. I'd like to talk about the Open. We were just kind of talking about it earlier. It was difficult for me to see Derek get that top spot. Again, we're judging based on what we see online, could be completely different in person. But I saw, you know, more shredded abs. I saw something in Nick that I haven't seen in a while. And it was interesting to see Derek win. If you know, I believe he won the Arnold, right?
I think so. Yeah.
And then Pittsburgh Pro. So they're saying, you know, if he wins Olympia 2, he might be one of the first ever to win all three in 1 year, which he'd probably go down as the best bodybuilder in history if that's the case.
Yeah.
So that's probably you, right? We're gonna get you there one time.
I gotta get there one day before I hang it up. You know, that's the goal. To Olympia.
Hang up the board shorts.
Yeah, hang up the board shorts. Maybe put on my pajama pants like Arnold said.
Oh god. or maybe the classic look.
Yeah.
Maybe he's gonna switch divisions.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, seeing Derek and the two of them competing, it's just so hard. I can't even imagine being a judge. Like, you're just nitpicking at that point of who looks better with which pose, who's fading. But I think it's just exciting for the sport to have like big names compete before the Olympia.
Yeah,
I think it gets everybody.
It was like
excited.
a mini Olympia, honestly.
Yeah. So I think some people in the past would just like wait until Olympia, and so all these other shows don't have as bigger names. But I think it's great when people, you know, sign up for multiple shows throughout the year and just showcase their face for the fans,
and more money for them.
More money and overall growth of the sport and more exposure and awareness. Yeah.
When it comes to posing, right? I have to say I'm a truist. I like one of the oldies. I like Jeremy Buendia. I personally think his posing flows so beautifully. He does that art like nobody else. Are there individuals you look up to when it comes to your posing? And, you know, what are some things that you can tell viewers about posing? I bring that up quite often because it's part of the art, right?
Yeah. I think posing is a whole different aspect that sometimes newer competitors even overlook. You know, when you commit to a bodybuilding competition and preparation, that's one aspect of it. But the whole other aspect is posing. Because if you look your best, but you don't know how to showcase it, somebody else could beat you, even if theoretically you look better than them. But if you're not showcasing your strengths and hiding your weaknesses, you can be exposed by the person to your left or by the person to your right. And, you know, that's something I learned early on. Like, posing is very, very important. There's a lot of endurance involved with it too, because you want to be able to hold your best with a tight core without looking like you're straining, you know, like that's why the best posers make it look so natural. It doesn't even look like they're posing or struggling.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even look like they have labored breathing in. So, and I would agree with you. Jeremy Buendia, actually, fun fact, he was one of my first coaches.
No way.
And then, and he really took me under his wing. I worked beside him as his assistant online coach as well. And so that's something that not a lot of people know. But I learned a lot from Jeremy, as I think I was his athlete for 3 years. And then I worked alongside him, learned under him as a mentee for 3 years, 2 to 3 years as well. And so, he was my original and still is, inspires me in terms of like that original men's physique look. He has an X figure. Even his posing, I still try to emulate it. You know,
it flows so well. It's like it was made. He was made for that, right? What is he, 4-time?
I believe so. Yeah, 4-time champ. Yeah.
4-time champ. Yeah. Is he the most Olympia wins for
I
men's
think
physique?
so for men's physique. I don't think anybody has gotten close to me. I think
Yeah.
Brandon might have
Oh,
3
okay.
or 2. I forget, but
Yeah.
he's still has the most titles.
Are
Yeah.
there up and coming names that you've been seeing the past couple years that I guess not as popular that you think people should be watching out for, even yourself?
um, I don't know anybody off the top of my head, but I mean, but the people that I have been watching, I mean, Ali and Ryan Terry, those
Yeah.
are, I mean, everybody's eyes are just drawn to them. They have these crazy cores that I don't even know how they have like a 10-pack.
It's like I know it's like drawn on there.
Yeah, and their obliques are just like looking like fish gills. It's like, dang, I
Yeah.
wish I can have an extra line right there, but I wasn't born with those. So, yeah, but it kind of goes along with like, bodybuilding is a sport of genetics as well. And so going back to the core thing, I know kind of going off a tangent, but like they have these crazy cores. And like I have a weird 4-pack versus they have this crazy looking 10-pack. Genetics do play a big role in the sport because it ultimately dictates how you look and how you present yourself. And, you're born with what you're born with.
So yeah, some people have 4, 6, 8, and then the last two may be right there somewhere.
Yeah,
I mean, they're lucky. I just have a 1 big pack. That's what I have. It's great to have you on, Franky. We really appreciate it. Financial fitness. It's nice to see you guys again. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.